Yeah, I think it comes down to three things, Alex: alignment, impact, and clarity.
And then figure out how the partner team can support those big bets.
Yourself. Go and talk to the leaders in the marketing team and understand the things that they are doing at a much deeper level.
It's all about that give before you make an ask.
Partnerships 101. To start sharing our solution.
Welcome to Make Them Famous, the podcast about partner enablement.
The only podcast to uncover both how partner teams enable their partners
and how other department leaders enable their partner teams to achieve success.
Hello, and welcome back to Make Them Famous, the podcast where you hear two sides of the story around partnership success. Today, we're going to talk about marketing partnerships alignment. Marketing partnerships alignment can be a challenge for tech companies for multiple reasons, which we will get into in this episode. Further, maintaining a community within product advocacy is becoming more and more crucial to category leadership. To address the why and how of marketing partnerships alignment, as well as community competency, I've asked Nick Bennett, Director of Evangelism and Customer Marketing at Alyce, and his colleague, Rob Sale, Director of Partnerships at Alyce, to help us understand marketing partnerships alignment, how Rob and Nick run their overlapping projects, Nick's community, and where and how he allows Alyce and Rob to access it in any way, email, social, etc. Community-led partnerships. What does it mean? Where to begin? Building a community under your partner program, converting community members to active partners, tracking and reporting on community KPIs, how those KPIs relate to partnerships. This is part one because Nick and Rob are just getting started on some major initiatives that we want to check back in on in a few months. Like the rest, this one wraps at around 50 minutes and gets really good towards the end. And like the rest, we have to fund this podcast. So it helps us if you, the listener, stand by and listen in and take action on these recommended partner enablement software that have sponsored us. We'll see you in a minute. First, PartnerStack. PartnerStack is the number one rated partner platform for software companies. PartnerStack works with top companies like Monday.com, Unbounce, who was just on the podcast, Intercom, Webflow, some of the companies that use PartnerStack to make sure that their partners are happy. We advise many of our post-program market fit clients to demo PartnerStack when they are ready to scale revenue through partnerships. We also talk a lot about co-selling in this podcast. We talk a lot about co-selling between agencies and tech, as well as tech to tech. And one of the platforms that really shines for both sides of our ecosystem, the agencies and the technology, is Reveal. Reveal just launched version 2. They have an amazing UI and UX, and our agencies love it. And this is the thing with these co-selling partnerships, is if one of the two sides does not have the tool that you're trying to use, you can't effectively co-sell. So we recommend Reveal, number one, because it's a great product. Number two, because you can integrate CRM for free and map data without hitting a paywall. Many agencies will stop when you try to refer them to a tool that is too expensive, and that will crush your ability to effectively co-sell. With agencies in particular, it's super important. So check out Reveal, book a demo. It's free. Why not? Sendoso is our third sponsor of this show. They've been an awesome sponsor, an awesome partner for us in many ways. They're also in one of our programs, but Sendoso is the top sales and partnerships team's number one choice for gifting and sending. They are the leading sending platform. Sendoso is the most effective way for revenue teams to generate more revenue and stand out and engage their strategic points of contact throughout the partner journey. So if you're a tech team listening to this, I'm sure your salespeople are using Sendoso or something similar, but check out what they have to offer. They just released a number of new features, both for partners as well as for end users. And it's slick, and it is fast, and it is robust. So please check out Sendoso, check out Reveal, and check out PartnerStack. links below. And as usual, enjoy this episode. All right, we'll start with Nick. Nick, give us a quick introduction, what you do at Alyce, and why you're here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. So I'm Nick Bennett. So I actually just stepped into a new role about 2 weeks ago. So I'm leading evangelism and customer marketing. But prior to that, I was leading field marketing, community, and partner marketing. And that's kind of been my background, field marketing, partner marketing for the last 9 or 10 years at various tech companies globally.
And we all see your face popping up all over LinkedIn. Before I was even connected or following, I saw your face everywhere. So that's a good title. I think evangelism is very good for you, for sure. You're everywhere. But Rob, longtime channel expert, former Vidyard, now leading partnerships for Alyce. Give us a quick introduction to you, Rob.
Yeah, it's been a while, Alex. So super happy to be back on here. I look after our strategic partnerships over at Alyce. What that means really is looking after our tech ecosystem as well as our strategic go-to-market partners that help us do things around swag and kitting and global logistics and delivery and things like that. So those are the two main categories of partnerships that I look after and go for.
That's perfect. Yeah, you're in a great company type to be dealing with partnerships. You've got the gifting platform, the sending platform behind you. So you've got that going for you. That's always awesome. So today we're going to keep this pretty open, but we have some talking points that we want to hit on to make sure, as usual, you get a ton of actionable value. Overarching theme for this episode is partner marketing and community. So obviously that's why Nick's here. We want to talk about marketing and community. Rob and Nick have a new working relationship. So we don't have a lot of case study stuff to talk about between the two of them, but they've got a lot of big plans. They've got a lot of things that they're going to get done, and they're chipping away at that stuff. So we're going to keep this more about what we recommend partnerships and marketing should do together. What KPIs should they start to look at and try to find tracking for? Where community should be involved in all this, and what we can recommend underneath all that to make sure you guys are successful between marketing, community, and partnerships. So let's start with our first topic here, marketing and partnerships. We'll start a little high level. So Nick, give us your quick, not recommendation, but your take on partnerships and marketing. How do you kind of see the two defined or overlapped, and how they work together in your perspective?
Yeah, I think it needs to be part of like the larger ecosystem story. And so what can you do to help bring that story to life through, different types of partnerships, whether it's tech partners, API partners, channel partners, whatever. What can you do to tell that story in an effective way to kind of amplify that sound? And so something that I've always focused on is the partners that I know I can build relationships with and trust and get, the support from through different types of campaigns and activities. If you're going to spend the money to go in and do something, and you have like-minded partners that are also willing as part of the ecosystem, why not leverage those people to amplify that and get it out even further? And so I think it's something that Rob's done a fantastic job with building the ecosystem and continuing to build the ecosystem. But what can I do as a marketer to make Rob's life easier? Because this guy is like, I don't know how he does. He sits in meetings all day and he still gets a ton of stuff done. But yeah, that's kind of been my philosophy. Like, work with people that you can trust, work with people that can help scale, and work with people that that can help amplify your own brand's mission as well.
Partners, I think, and community, there's a lot of synonymous, XYZ underneath that. If you're building a partner program, you are essentially building a community, or you should think of it that way. I don't think everyone does, but that's the way I think of it. But Rob, what do you think about back to marketing and your relationship with your marketing teams in general? What do you try to do? What are some of the key things you try to get solidified, checked off, whatever, and then talk about really what marketing can enable a partnership team to do if it is enabling you, if you're working together, and what it means to the success of the program?
Yeah, I think it comes down to three things, Alex. It's alignment, impact, and clarity. So really important that the partner team is aligned with the marketing team from a top line company goals objective, period. So start there. Like, we're going back first principles here. Start there, but getting alignment on that. Are we aligned? And are we measuring the impact of that alignment? And are we being clear on those things? Once we get alignment around those things, it becomes a lot easier for like Nick and I to have the conversations to build the strategy and to make sure that we're tracking all the right things. So for example, here at Alyce, we just went through a very long and lengthy exercise around this. And so I know there's certain things around things like qualified pipeline and scoring and win rates that I need to get aligned on with Nick, and then we can build those plans out. In absence of that, and making sure that we all know where we're pointing to, it's tough to get alignment over competing priorities and so on. So at the very highest level, we got to make sure that we've got alignment and clarity on what we're all doing, and then how we're going to measure that going forward. And that's super important. It takes a long time, but for the rest of the year, Nick and I have a much better plan and idea of how we're going to be working together.
I love it, Nick. And I want to go back to you for this. So like, Rob came on. It's probably not the first partnerships person or department you've ever dealt with. You're an advisor over at Chili Piper. Some of our friends are over there on the partner team as well. So you obviously work closely with partnerships teams. But I've never been in a big company like yours that has a big partner team and a big marketing team. So I can't imagine all the nuances that go on between you two. But I hear about it from people that we work with. From a devil's advocate point of view, where do you think friction occurs when you hear that the marketing team at your friend's company doesn't work with the partnerships team, and the partnerships team they don't have access, they can't get landing pages, or they can't get assets done? Where do you think the friction lies there? Why does that occur?
I think it's just the communication aspect. Like, if there's no communication or lack of communication, it just creates silos. I mean, think about everything between sales and marketing. It's everyone preaches alignment. It's the same thing for your partner team as well. If there is no alignment amongst like what KPIs or metrics are we looking at collectively so that we can make the best informed decisions, it's just going to lead to, things where, it could be an uncomfortable, conversation. I think that's okay. I think it's good to have uncomfortable conversations, but what are the lessons learned so that you don't make those same mistakes, going forward? And I joke with Rob all the time because I'm like, why aren't we integrated with XYZ companies? Like, come on, Rob, like, I'm a marketer. I need this. Like, we need this in our product. And like, I get it. He's getting pulled in a million different directions. He has higher priorities. I'm just a marketer. Like, yeah, it would be nice to have these other integrations and other partnerships that are going, but I understand that other things take priority. And I think understanding that mindset of here's what Rob's focusing on, here's what I'm focusing on, here's what others within marketing are focusing on, I think brings something to the table where everyone's kind of aligned a lot better. And then it ends with the communication. If you're not having a weekly or bi-weekly or monthly conversation with your partner team, things are just going to fall through the cracks. And I know we've been trying to do this more and more lately, but it's so important to just kind of eliminate silos before they even pop up.
Yeah. And I'm going to go back to you, Rob. Of course, you've got a ton of feedback here, but what do you see as the cause of friction between marketing and partnerships when you've seen it in the past? You don't have to name names, but what were the reasons that it was causing problems or wasn't successful?
Yeah, and I'll go back to misalignment on those top line goals as well, and then being able to have regular cadence with those, making sure that a partner leader, marketing leader also have a shared understanding of how we can work together into those goals specifically. Like to Nick's point, communication is huge. We're always every company I've been in has silos, just how it goes, right? You got to break those down. And communication and having regular cadence against those top line measured goals is the only way to do it. And making sure that everyone cross-functionally understands that why we spend so much time doing things together, why we are doing those. But again, back to that point around impact that I made, you have to be able to show impact of the initiatives and things that you're prioritizing. So making sure that those things are happening. Whenever friction comes up, you can just point back to that. You just go, well, look, this is why we're doing, I get it. But you can have an open and honest conversation around it. And, our new COO, Brett Zucker, he has a saying, he's like, say it in the room, make sure that everybody is saying those things in the room when you have the data to point to and look at, and you can say it in the room and feel comfortable saying it in the room. That breaks down so many points of friction into just a manageable bite-sized thing that you can solve. So if you have those things, the culture to say it in the room, the data to measure those impacts, and everybody understanding why you're doing those initiatives, suddenly friction points don't feel so much like friction. They feel like opportunities to talk and solve versus like just getting in the way.
I love that. That's a good soundbite right there. If a new partner manager comes, let's just say you didn't have a partner team and partner team's brand new. If they just come to you with needs and it's like, I need a landing page. I need an asset here. I need this. I need this put up on our site. I need this put up on our social. I need this. And this isn't your job anymore. It sounds like there's people managing social and all that stuff. So pretend you're that person managing all the website, social accounts, all that sort of stuff. And they just come to you with needs. This is what I've heard in the past. And partner managers, partner channel leaders typically come from sales. I'd say above average, they come out of sales departments. If they're coming from another department, not a lot coming from marketing departments. So they don't know how to speak the language of marketing. So what I've been helping teams understand a little bit is like, if you're coming to Nick with needs, you have to start with, well, what are Nick's KPIs and his keywords of focus and his agenda for this quarter, this year, and then go back to your team and say, okay, this is what Nick needs to get done. Here's his track. Here's the end goal for Nick for this quarter. How can we insert things that we need and frame it to make sure that Nick understands how it stays on his track? So if we do need a partner directory, well, we're going to load that with a whole bunch of keywords, and we're going to use that directory to convert site traffic, or there's going to be templates on there. We're going to show Nick how putting time into this directory is going to convert traffic or something like that. That's a good just example. But Nick, how can you help partner teams speak your language and frame things so that you'll say yes more often, or you'll give them more resources, anything at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that you mentioned, it makes perfect sense. I think it's more so just understanding, like, how does this tie into overall business needs versus just like one off like campaign or whatever. And we've tried to kind of implement different frameworks of like using like ticketing system types things for any request, not just partner requests, but just other requests, like, whether you're using like Asana or a Trello or Monday or whatever, .com or whatever, just figuring out what does that look like? How does it tie in? Like, okay, you want a partner directory. What are we doing with this? What is how does this tie back to the business goals versus just like helping the partner team with that? Or say we're building out a landing page for like some event that we're doing with a partner. Like, how does this play in? Like, is marketing involved in the actual like planning of that? Because in a lot of cases, and not within Alyce, but previously, like I've worked for companies that were very channel focused, and the partner team would be doing all of these partner events, and like marketing wouldn't be involved at all. And it was like, I get it, you have your own budget, but like we have to be looped in here, because you're just going to do this event, wine and dine people, whatever. And then how do we justify the ROI or business outcomes to the business from that? Like, what is a larger strategy? Maybe we can do digital promotion around it. Maybe we can then have them on a podcast, take those podcast clips, run them into paid ads. Like, there's so much more that you can do versus just like that single mindset. And I think, Rob does a fantastic job. His whole team actually does a fantastic job with this, of like bringing that mindset of how it impacts the overall business and how marketing can support that versus just go do XYZ because we need this tomorrow.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that, Alex. Like, one of the things that Nick and I just started doing is like, you gotta sort of jump ahead of this stuff, or it just becomes a reaction game, right? And on a quarterly basis, planning on a quarterly basis, like Nick, what are your goals? What are your goals going ahead? Here's what we're doing. And planning to that. I think to your point, Alex, you just said it. It's just like, hey, Nick's got a bunch of things lined up here. Well, here's how I can help you, Nick. And then Nick goes, oh, well, I've got these things. Can your partner help me here? So you just getting ahead of that before it just gets unwieldy is super, super helpful, and do that on a regular quarterly cadence.
Killer. Okay, so that covers the bulk of the marketing general discussion, but now we want to get into community. Nick, what is the community right now for you? I know you have your own, and how does that relate to Alyce?
Yeah, absolutely. So I launched a brand new community called Revenue Era. And so it's for revenue marketers that are looking to up-level themselves both from a professional standpoint and a personal standpoint. So it's very much geared towards the actual marketers that are touching revenue on a daily basis. And, whether that's field marketing, ABM, events, demand gen, growth, those are kind of like our core group, but we use it as a way for people to get together and figure out other opportunities to work together. And so myself, along with Arthur Castillo, who runs field marketing community at Chili Piper, shout out to him, and then Joel Primack, who runs community at Lattice, we all kind of came together and really launched this due to people kind of asking me like, hey, we want to continue conversations. I was already running a monthly meetup for field marketers to get together to like bounce ideas off of each other. They were like, we want more. And so I launched it. And honestly, we're trying to keep it very content heavy right now, but no partners. And it's funny because I had like six companies reach out that were like, hey, we want to sponsor this. Just tell me how much money you need to get access to like a group like this. And I was just like, unfortunately, like I want to make this a safe place for people that are in marketing to be heard, to be able to get things out there so that when they do have community, a partner, or field, or whatever type of questions, they can ask that without feeling judged by a vendor or someone else.
Oh, that's killer. Yeah. We have another community kind of like ours that talks to agencies. They sold a sponsorship spot for $120,000 to MailChimp it was. And part of that sponsorship was they had to host a whole lot of workshops that just focused on MailChimp as a tool, as a product. They had to put MailChimp into all their newsletters. They just became the MailChimp community, and MailChimp probably got what they wanted out of that, I'm sure, but that community died. I haven't heard anything about that community since they sold that sponsorship spot. So good choice not to sell out on that side of things. If you want to keep your community, keep your brand out of it. So I always recommend with products that want to do a community, start with an advocacy affinity brand. Don't go Alyce's community, go the RevOps community and have one of your team members own it and have very clear guidelines on what and when Alyce is able to be inserted into there. So I do want to talk about that real quick. So there's the affinity type of community that Nick runs around revenue. Then there's the partner program that Rob runs. Obviously, partner managers are under revenue, or most partner managers are under revenue, and they have those revenue objectives, and they'll probably get into Nick's community. But where is the relationship between your partner program and Nick's community today? And then what are some of the things you guys have talked about doing that would benefit you both?
It's interesting, the overlay of partners into community. So I look at sort of three different ownerships in this equation. There's like corporately owned communities. HubSpot has a big one, or, you even have one, which is great. And then there's communities that individuals, the experts in the game like Nick, have and build. And these are big communities. And then there's the communities that are partners. And it's really identifying the intersection points around all this. It's almost getting into that cross-beam language where it's like coming all together and, hey, if cross-beam, you start doing this as well, that'd be great. But it's really about taking those elements together. So I'll give you some examples, right? So we have, Nick runs a bunch of communities. We have some of our tech partners, like we partner with Vidyard and so on. It's a place to be able to offer those experts that are in those partner employees the ability to provide thought leadership, right, on shared spaces. So I think Jared Fuller had a definition, I hope I don't butcher this, but like a business ecosystem is one, partners with shared economic interests, and two, communities of people that have professional interests, right? So we're trying to blend all these things. Everybody's creating ecosystems. And with that comes communities. And so what Nick and I have done is like, there's some really awesome thought leaders and other influencers and people that are with our partners, and those communities become avenues in which we can collaborate together purely on a safe place, as Nick talked about. It provides another lens, another voice, more learning. And when we bring those things together, it really does work out well. We one of our reps, Alyce Moudwar, she owns Women in Sales, for example. So like she started that up. So Nick's works a lot with that community as well. But we've brought in thought leaders from our partners like Vidyard and others onto that, and it's just a really great collaboration from our ecosystem, adding value to the communities and the members of those communities. So that's how we're sort of working together from a brand and thought leadership perspective right now.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. And Nick, I want your opinion on this, but you mentioned something that I just want to plug, a non-sponsor. Shout out to Reveal, by the way, if you're considering Crossbeam or Reveal, shout out to Reveal. They do sponsor this shit. So I do have to plug them. We have to have sponsors.
Sorry. Yes. Of course. I
But this company is not a sponsor, Orbit. So there's two companies that allow you to map and do really cool communication as well as analytics on your entire community. So you can plug your CRM, and then you plug your LinkedIn, you sign into the company LinkedIn, you sign in CRM, you sign into Slack, you sign into whatever the community platform is. We use Mighty Networks, Circle's another one, whatever. You sign into your LMS as well. And it brings in all that data, and it shows who's in Slack, that's also in my newsletter, that's also following us on LinkedIn, that's also following us on Twitter. Who's just following us on Twitter, but not in the community, not in whatever. And you can plug your partner program leads in there as well. One of them is called Orbit, really cool platform out of San Francisco. And then the other one that's getting a lot of attention is Comsor. Comsor, I believe, is pretty prohibitive to get involved. You got to sign some really big enterprise agreement, I think, at this stage. But orbit.love, check that product out. Super
That's
cool.
awesome.
But you can use that internally to just map everything and say, okay, let's focus on this part of the Venn diagram, getting them into your community, and then this part of the Venn diagram, getting them into the partner program.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's actually, interesting enough that you were just talking about a few of those products. So I actually advise for a company called Charla. And so they do a lot of community type things where it's basically a social listening tool within Slack communities, Discord, and a couple others. But if you're a community manager, you can run it through there to kind of see what the community health is like. You could set it so that if people are in a community talking about, say, Alyce, and you want to see if they're talking about gifting or direct mail, you could actually set a keyword where you could just jump into the conversation because you get an alert, and you never have to be afraid that you're going to miss part of the conversation without feeling like you have to sell them or anything like that. So it's definitely something else to check out if you want to kind of understand how to pull actionable insights from your online community. I'm in like Pavilion, Rev Genius. They use this as well to kind of see what that health looks like. So it's starting to pop up more and more. But, I think it's something that is kind of Rob kind of goes through. It's been so interesting to see what you can do and what the focus is. I feel like the pandemic really kind of accelerated the community growth. How do partners plug into this community? How does the ecosystem plug into this community? And there's so many communities out there. I mean, I think at some point you're going to start to see, kind of like that outreach buying sales hacker. You're going to see these B2B companies that are buying up all these communities, and it's going to be interesting for sure. But yeah, I agree 100% with everything that Rob said.
Yeah, and I was just showing, this is the company you advised for. Shout out to Charla. Super cool. Yeah, this does just what we were talking about, that I think a couple other platforms are trying to play in this space. Everybody has a different setup. So if you're looking at one of these tools to tie the data between your communities together, the one I mentioned, I do remember now, it is more for developer focused communities than social marketing, sales related communities, and the integrations will show that. So if you see a lot of Discord, a lot of GitHub stuff connected, they may not have stuff for marketers and stuff for the sales team. But either way, check those out. Charla.cc, orbit.love are the ones that we're recommending, and get your data figured out Reveal or Crossbeam or Partner,
Yep.
those tools to map your ecosystem and figure out where you guys are at, and then set some expectations and get a community-led partnerships approach. And then highlighting partners. Let's talk about that for a little bit. So Rob's got to have incentives for partners that are coming in, and he's got to bring partners in. Have you guys talked about some things that you can potentially do on the co-marketing side with partners? I always like to talk about co-marketing. What do you have to say about that?
I say this is a super exciting time for partner marketing, right? Like the advancement around everybody building an ecosystem, the advancement on the tools. Look at the tools that are coming out to help manage this, understand the overlaps, the intersections, points, the data, the feeds coming out of this. This is huge. Like the partner marketing playbook is being rewritten essentially right now. And where it used to be sort of pretty standard, hey, let's talk about our integration and let's, fire it off to one audience and so on. The tools that we have now, we can get hyper segmented, hyper focused, and specific to the persona segment, even right down to the stage of the customer journey that we want to all sort of tackle together, right? And even down to what tech stack works well. What I love to see, what I'm seeing more of right now, is like 3 or 4 partners getting together, understanding that they've got a great intersection of things, and talking about what the BD professional needs in a tech stack. How does gifting work with SalesLoft, work with video, work with what that core tech stack, and talk about how they all work together, because that's how the buyers think. They think in tech stack, not in individual integrations. All these things have to work really, really well. So I love seeing that. We're doing way more of that as well, getting multiple partners. But man, you can start to segment down to like, hey, with the tools that you have, wow, we've got, community visibility. We've got, it looks like maybe a ton of joint accounts that are in deal cycle stages. So let's tailor our messaging specific just to that audience that are in the deal stage, and see what tech partners make sense, and then develop a stack and go right at that audience. Like you can go end deep now, Alex. It's ridiculous. And that's fun. Planning those things out rather than the generic playbook. You've got so many more options now. And I truly think community competency is going to be part of the partner evaluation playbook in the future. How well do you?
Explain what community competency means for what you just.
Yeah, so so what Nick is talking about. Does the company I'm about to partner with have great understanding of community? Can they build communities? Do they have communities? Do they treat them the appropriate way? Am I getting involved in something, to your point about MailChimp, that I just become a channel for selling? Or is it truly a safe place for learning and thought leadership and going? Do they have that at all 3 levels? Do they have partners that have great ecosystems? Do they have individuals that have great influence like Nick? That's out there. And then also, do they have more of a corporate ownership? And so if I tie it back to like agencies and your audience and stuff, they're always forever trying to figure out, man, there's so many options. They all sound the same. How do I evaluate them? And what do I want to do? Well, agencies want to know you're solving big problems. They want to know that you have an audience they can get in front of. And agencies are so good at thought leadership. Why? Because they've seen it all. They've implemented these things across many different variations, companies, and so on, and can be thought leaders. So, if I'm thinking about your audience and those agencies, like measuring community competency and making sure that that's a core piece of the partner program, and that there's really great alignment between the Nicks and the Robs of the world, so huge before I invest heavily into that partnership. So I don't know, Nick, if we want to expand on any of that, what you're seeing as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there. It's like, it just goes back to like figuring out a way to make real relationships work and just digging deeper to get to know who, the people that you work with are, so that you do have these really great relationships. Like when Rob tells me some of these things that are happening within like the partner ecosystem, the plans, like everything that I can see what he wants to do and how it's going to come to life, it gets me excited as a marketer, because I know I'm going to be able to work on some really cool projects. That's not just the typical playbook that people have been running for years. And that's something that I've always been against. It's like everyone's been running the same playbook year after year. You run your ads, you run your search, you do your events, you show up at these trade shows and waste money on booths. Like there's better ways to be doing it. And when you have a company that supports you, but two, like a counterpart and partner ecosystem of like champions that want to be a part of being something different, I think just makes it go so much further.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So much to unpack there. So I like the frame of kind of looking at the content marketing that you can do with partners, the co-marketing as a part of the different buckets of where they're at in their buyer journey, and kind of seeing if they can produce with partners to help enable other partners. And the idea is twofold, I think. The way you were framing it, there's two parts there. There's using co-marketing as an incentive to get closer to partners, meet more people, get them to feel that sense of I'm being provided value by Alyce and Rob and the team. And then there's the other side, which is you need that partner sourced content to show other partners how to do different things with the product. And that comes, I think, after they are a partner and they've been using Alyce, and now you can develop these case studies and templates and stuff with your partner. So there's two sides of it there. Yeah, Nick, it sounds like you're all in on the idea that a simple example is like, yeah, your marketing team can create any content you want all day long. You can outsource some of it for ghost writing. You can, have your agencies develop videos for you, your contracted agencies. But then there's blog posts, there's videos, there's partner source content. And how much more valuable is that when you have a top agency that's a partner of Alyce create a use case for how they connected it to Salesforce and automate yada, yada, yada. That's going to convert your shoppers, your user, your traffic a lot higher.
Exactly. And like, honestly, within my new role, like a lot of what I do is get paid to create content. It's honestly great. It's like, I'm going to the Forrester conference coming up. And like the sole reason that I'm going there is to record like user generated content, like with partners, like I'm shooting a few case studies. How does like the partner ecosystem work? And then just some B2B marketers that I consider influencers in the area agreed to meet up and shoot some content. And so like, one, what can I do to leverage this from like my personal LinkedIn and social, but like, how can I use this to support Alyce's like mission of everything that they're passionate about as a brand? And so I'm just super excited to be able to do that and kind of bring all of these ideas to life.
This is killer, man. I think the mentality there of just knowing that you and marketing can work together to accomplish the same KPIs. And shout out to our friend Ty Lingley over there at Ally. They've got a free template, by the way. We'll link to it below the notes here of developing OKRs with your team, partnerships, but also marketing. So if you're not familiar with what that is, objectives and key results, you have your partner focused stuff. That's all partnerships internal, but then you can have an objective that is a part of marketing's objective that partnerships can use whatever power partnerships has to help Nick and the marketing department achieve that same objective. And that objective, a good example is just traffic to partner source content on the blog, and you could say, hey, we've got a goal there, just like Nick has an overall traffic goal for the blog. One of the objectives is to increase partner sourced traffic by a certain amount. And then Rob will sit there and think, before I hand this partner over to Nick to get an article written, he'll qualify a little bit more and say, will whatever idea that partner has for a piece of content, will that really help us attract more of that main keyword that we're after, which will get us more organic traffic? And if so, then he'll pass it off and say, this guy is going to write to this keyword and he's got a great team to get it done. I think it's going to help us hit our objective. And then we track that in Ally or track it in Google Sheets or track it wherever you track it. But that's a good example of how you guys can work together.
and things you guys are already doing. So that's great. Anything on that, Rob?
I completely agree. And a big shout out to Ty and the OKRs. I mean, that is huge. And whenever those OKRs have some sort of shared or cross-functional alignment. And I have to make sure that Nick is actually going, yes, I can do this. And yes, I agree with this. And yes, it helps us hit those top line goals so that he has a framework to measure all this against as well. So I completely agree. And that's kind of where I was getting to at without saying the word OKR. That's kind of where I was getting to for earlier on about the alignment and clarity and impact and so on, but 100% agree.
Yeah. And Nick, we'll end on this real quick. I'll get your sort of next steps. We like to try to end on action items. So we've given you a lot of advice. Hopefully you found it good and useful. But now it's like, okay, well, I'm in this boat of maybe I don't have a good relationship with marketing. I'll start there. What would you recommend a partner team or manager? Maybe it's usually a, 1 or 2 person partner team that just haven't proven partnerships out internally, so they don't get buy-in from anywhere else, right? What would you say to the marketing department to help them work closer with the team? What would you say to those partner managers to help them get what they need out of marketing?
I think it's more so just sit down and have that conversation at first, understand each other's viewpoints of like, okay, this is what the partner team's bringing to the channel from like, these are the business goals that I have and the OKRs or KPIs or whatever. And then from the marketing standpoint, go, okay, this is what I'm looking to achieve in, this quarter. And then figure out ways that you can help overlap without increasing the resources or making it too resource intensive where you're not going to do it. Because everyone comes into this and says, I want to do these 10 big bets for this quarter. And this is something that we're going through right now. Like, I want to do these 10 things. Like when you have a smaller marketing team and just kind of like, you're moving in a lot of different directions, it's not that easy. You could say, all right, I want to go do these 10 things. Sure. How are you going to do it when everyone's moving a million kind of miles a minute anyways? So I think it's focusing on the big 3 or 4 big bets that will actually move the needle for that quarter, for the first half or second half, or however you want to look at it. And then figure out how the partner team can support those big bets. If it's part of like, all right, the goal is to create content. What can we do to work with our partner ecosystem to create different types of blog posts, different types of social posts, different ways of creating user-generated content within those specific partner ecosystems? And I would say that's probably one of the biggest things.
I love it. I love it. And I want to end with your advice. If I want to start a community now, if I want to get involved in community, find community going on in my organization and get partners involved. And then we'll go back to Rob for final thoughts on that. Next.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just figuring out, what types of, where's your ICP? Like figure out where they are, like meet them where they are. If they're in Slack in these communities, great. If they're on Reddit, if they're on LinkedIn, if they're on Twitter, just find out where your ICP hangs out and go to meet them there. For me, it's a little bit easier because we're selling to people exactly like me. So I know exactly where they're hanging out because I'm hanging out in those exact spots. And so it's just figuring out ways to not come off as salesy or not come off as like, I want to push my product, but come off as a way that you're going to add value. Oh, you're looking to do, integrate with this. Did you know that we can integrate with these 3 people because of XYZ, delivering value, delivering more ROI back to you as a company? Like without selling it, add value in whatever way you can. And I think that will help make you come across as more of not even like a thought leader, but make you come across more of like, hey, this person is just trying to give me advice. Yeah, like I understand they work for a company that probably wants to sell to us, but they gave me free stuff in return. And it's all about that give before you make an ask.
Partnerships 101. Gary Vaynerchuk, jab, right hook with marketing. That's good. I like that. Rob, any final thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm taking the opposite view, it's like if you're a partner manager, leader, whatever, it wasn't for a long time that I actually realized the channels that were available on inside of Alyce. Like it's something I probably would have done way earlier. So go and educate yourself. Go and talk to the leaders in the marketing team and understand the things that they are doing at a much deeper level and the kind of communities that they're involved in and so on. And always come at it with the approach of giving and always come at it with the approach of value to the ecosystem and one another from a brand perspective, thought leadership, understand how, those communities are managed internally and what our philosophy and ethos is around them and so on. And just come at it. I would have done that probably earlier, sooner, differently that way. If there's one thing I can pass on from a learning perspective, it's definitely looking at those avenues and finding out a joint strategy around it earlier than I did. But like I said, I think there's a huge shift in the last 2 years and around community, and it's just exploded. And I think it's a super exciting time for partner marketing and how partner ecosystems and the communities in those ecosystems are now sort of another key stakeholder in any grander plan around marketing, brand, narrative, thought leadership, and so on. You just make sure that if you're going to be partnering with somebody, start asking those questions, right? Start asking them about what they do and how they do it around communities, because it's a huge opportunity.
Killer. Guys, we're right up on time. So this has been perfect, huge, awesome. I think we got a ton of those FAQs around marketing and partnerships alignment out of the way. A number of things community related that a lot of people just don't even know to ask. This was huge. I'll get some feedback from it, and maybe around 2 and 6 months or so, once you guys have some good stuff to report on, and we'll talk about how it's working then. Thank you guys. And nice to meet you, Nick. I didn't meet you before.
Yeah. Likewise. Yeah. Thanks for having us on. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Alex. Appreciate it.
Take care. See you.
Sharing our solution.